What is up, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Draft Bible Prospect Profits. Today, it is only me and Lorenz. Alec could not make it. He's a busy boy. But we are on the Fan Nation Network, powered by Sports Illustrated. It is a fun, family-friendly Tuesday football day. What's up, Lorenz? Today we're going to talk about. Go ahead.
No Alec today, so that's why you're getting our big faces and even worse intros from Jack. So there you go. But today we'll talk about the Minnesota Vikings and Cincinnati Bengals, two teams on pretty different trajectories. I guess in theory. What's that?
I said you're finishing my intro. What the
heck? Yeah, I mean you obviously got stuck up, so I'm trying to save you right here to make us look somewhat professional, but. Jeez. Clearly, at least your internet seems to be all right today. How you doing, Jack?
Alec's the problem. Alec both grounds me in my intros. I can look at him and be, not laugh. And apparently he's the problem with my internet. I'm doing all right. Back in the office.
So what you're saying is, if you look at me, you gotta laugh.
Yeah.
Okay, I see how it is.
Back in the office, so that's why the show's a little bit later today. Gonna probably have to do shows.
Yeah, just making me stay up until 11 p.m. All right, I'm done cutting you off. Go ahead.
I'm just working 9-10 hours a day. Whatever. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Bengals and the Vikings. Two teams that I don't think are particularly good. It's gonna be a good show, Lorenz. You tell us how you're doing today.
I'm doing great, I'm home alone. It's just my little brother, but he's playing video games all day, so don't even recognize him, I was watering the plants today, doing the washing stuff, like washing clothes, and it was a good day. It's kind of fun. I could definitely envision being like a stay-at-home dad. I think that's kind of cool. I could do all that stuff and grind some tape, but let's get into these teams.
You're like an adult now. All right, so talking Minnesota Vikings first. Their draft class this year, they took Christian Darrisaw. They traded back for him, if I remember correctly. They traded back for him, offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. Kellen Mond, the quarterback out of Texas A&M. Chaz Surratt, linebacker out of UNC. Wyatt Davis, the guard from Ohio State. Patrick Jones, the second, the defensive end out of Pitt. Kenny Nwangwu, did I get that right? Running back out of Iowa State. Cameron Bynum, defensive back out of Cal. He came out as a corner. He's playing a little bit of safety at the moment. Janarius Robinson, defensive end out of FSU. Amir Smith-Marset, the wide receiver out of Iowa. Draft Twitter had a little bit of a crush on him. Zach Davidson, the tight end out of Central Missouri. And then Jalen Twyman, the defensive tackle out of Pitt. Fun little draft class. Young talent on their first-year deal. I found one guy on that I think was a stud on a rookie deal, and that's obviously Justin Jefferson. Lorenz, this Vikings team. In the past few years, they've been close a few times. Now they're a little shaky. What do you think of this young foundation?
Yeah, I mean, getting into the draft first, I thought Christian Darrisaw fall into wherever they were sitting 24 was an absolute, or 25 even was a steal. Actually, they moved back to get that selection. I think he's got a good shot of being there. Starter at left tackle in the future, was one of my first round graded players, so I'm excited about Christian Darrisaw. Then I think the next pick I like is Wyatt Davis. He was my favorite guard in the draft, so I really love what they did on the offensive line. I think there's a good chance both these guys end up starting and being 4 or 5 year starters until their rookie deal's up, and then we'll see what happens for this team. And then another pick I like, you said, hey, Draft Twitter had a bit of a crush on Amir Smith-Marset. I think rightfully so. I just went back to look at their preseason game. He's already returning kicks. I think he's got the potential to in 2 or 3 years step in there and be their number 2 wide receiver next to Justin Jefferson. I love his route running ability. He's got some speed downfield. He's got that special teams ability right now. And I think he was someone who was a steal as late as he went. There were probably some concerns about his ability to have a special teams impact outside of being a returner, and that's why he might have fell. But I think he's a good returner. So I'm high on Amir Smith-Marset. Like the gamble on Janarius Robinson, but they had a lot of picks, And some of them, I just didn't think they got a lot of value. I don't think Kellen Mond's a starting quarterback. I don't think Chester Rat's a starting linebacker. Patrick Jones, I was lower on. Kenyon Wangu is going to be their third or fourth running back and a special teamer. Justin Jefferson is a stud, but you would like to see more names on that young studs list on a rookie deal, obviously. But man, he's been the best rookie receiver last year, and he might continue to do that. I think the one guy that could sort of challenge him in that class was CeeDee Lamb. But he's a heck of a talent, and just his ability to catch the ball. Obviously, he's got plucky hands. You guys know I love talking about plucky hands, but he's also a really good route runner. Can do it from the outside, from the slot. Tremendous talent is Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I was a little bit higher on Kellen Mond than some other people. I don't think I'd touch him in the second round. I think, when you look at what the Vikings' plan was with Mond, I think the Vikings are probably pretty much done. Like the front office probably pretty tired of this Kirk Cousins deal, the fully guaranteed contract. Don't call us plucky. I think they're a little tired of this fully guaranteed contract. I think what you're looking at here is a chance to kind of create that next guy. Kellen Mond doesn't have all the tools. He has some tools. He could be a guy that maybe they develop, kind of take a shot. Again, I'm not a guy that likes drafting quarterbacks in day two. We've talked about that. It's kind of a joke, kind of not a joke. We'll have a whole special on that one day, maybe. And again,
I mean, if they're day 3 talents, I don't like it either.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So Mond,
that's like the definition of reaching.
Yeah, no, I think that they could have definitely invested resources better in that second round. There's definitely better players available. We've talked about the quarterback class a ton. You invest in the quarterback in the first round. You invest in other positions, second, third round, in my opinion. Anyways, moving on to their salary cap and their roster configuration. So this is where you can start to see a lot of the cracks of this Vikings team. Where their issues really actually are is in their financial handlings, I think. The current salary cap is at $13.3 million. So that's for the 2021 season. That's fine. 2022, they're going to have 60 players on the roster at $4 million in cap space. So they'll roll a little bit over that from the current salary cap. Not a terrible situation for 2022. 2023, they get $111 million with 39 players on the roster. In 2024, $241.5 million with 15 players on the roster. So there is semi-healthy cap build, or cap growth. I just don't like where they've really invested their money at this point. Their top 5 cap numbers: Kirk Cousins at $31 million. This is the cross to bear that the Vikings have. They guaranteed a salary to a quarterback who, in hindsight, they shouldn't have guaranteed a full salary to. That's going to weigh on their salary cap until the duration of his deal is complete. Kirk Cousins has performed as an average quarterback. I think that's really it. He's been an average quarterback. He's their top cap number, $31 million. That's a heavy cap number for an average player. Daniil Hunter, their defensive end, he's at $13.3 million. That's a good investment. Eric Kendricks, $12.4 million. A linebacker. I don't like overspending at the linebacker position. I think a linebacker can be an important position, but it's not where you should be investing that kind of money. Eric Kendricks is obviously a very good football player. Harrison Smith, very good safety, $10.2 million. Safety, again, not a position that maybe should be investing so much money into. You'd like to see that money being distributed into their offensive line, perhaps, into their defense, more of the defensive line, more of the, cornerback position. Regardless, Patrick Peterson at $8 million. That's a deal that I can work with. You just wish that was being invested into a younger player. Pat Pete was, a very good corner in the NFL. But to invest in free agency in an aging corner, a guy who's entering that decline period of his career, just not a phenomenal investment. I understand why they did it, etc. Strengths of this roster, unless Lorenz, do you want to jump in and talk money really quick before I go into the strengths?
So let me get this straight. You don't like signing Eric Kendricks and Harrison Smith, who are Pro Bowl and all-pro players potentially. Eric Kendricks, top 3 linebacker in the league. Harrison Smith, maybe a top 5 safety. But you do like signing Pat Pete.
No. I understand that's like not a terrible deal for a guy of his talent. He's just old. He's older in his career.
I don't know.
You don't invest that at that point. You don't invest that much money in a guy at that point of his career. The talent, I understand. He's on the decline. Harrison Smith is a guy that I've I've never been as high on. He's good. I understand that he's good. Just in terms of resource allocation to certain positions, their top 5 cap numbers, because those are the good players on their team. You want the good players on your team to be at better positions, more important positions. Obviously, safety and linebacker are important positions. Every position in the NFL
linebacker
is
very important.
Linebacker is important. There are more important positions. I played linebacker. I understand.
Yeah, like nose tackles.
Shut up. Nose tackle can be. Shut up. All right. Defensive ends, corners, offensive tackles. That's where I want to. That's where my philosophy comes in. That's where I'd like to see investment. This Vikings team is bad because they have not had an offensive line. They cannot defend the pass consistently on the outside. That's where my issue comes from here. I understand they are Pro Bowl good players, but where I like to see investment is at more. How about the words more premium positions? Sorry, I said shut up.
Nose tackle and guard, so you can displace vertically in the run game and don't get displaced in the run against the run.
This is a difference in. I like nose tackles and guards. This is a slight difference in opinion. I know you're also.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Let's get the strengths and weaknesses.
All right, so strengths. I like their running back position. They've got Dalvin Cook and Andrew. Is it Andrew Madison? I'm blanking. I wrote Madison down. Alexander Madison. Like the president. Wide receiver, obviously a strength. They've got Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, we've already talked about. The Eagles chose Jalen Reagor instead of Jefferson. Linebacker, they got Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Nick Vigil. That's a very nice group. We've already talked about linebacker. Safety, I don't love Xavier Woods, but Harrison Smith obviously makes that a strength. I like their interior defensive line. They got Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson. I think that's a strength in terms of their team. Weaknesses, I'll get to the weaknesses next. Average and unproven. Their offensive line is at best average. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm thinking that Christian Darrisaw will improve that offensive line in a year or so. Quarterback, average. We've already talked about that. Their tight end room, their cornerback room, even though they added Pat Pete, I still think that their cornerback position is average. Their pass rush, they have Daniil Hunter. He's obviously very good. But that's 50%. They need another decent pass rusher, in my opinion. Their weaknesses, I said that there's no significant weaknesses on this roster except Kirk Cousins' contract. If you can consider that a weakness, that's not a position, obviously, but for the investment cost, quarterback is a weakness, relatively speaking. It's an average positional group for the Vikings, but because of the amount of money, how it hinders their team, their ability to build a roster, I'm considering it a weakness. What do you think about that, Lorenz?
So I like the offensive line on paper. If these players are, I wouldn't say it's a strength, but I definitely think they're average. I think you look at Christian Darrisaw, Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, hopefully Wyatt Davis, who I like I said, and then Brian O'Neill. I think that's a massive improvement from what the Vikings had last year and even 2 years ago. This was one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league. So I think that's a solid unit. That's a big step up. Like I said, if you get those two rookies in there who I think can be starters, I'm really excited about it. I love this interior defensive line. I might just watch the Vikings just to watch Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson. Those two guys are such studs that never get any love. Those if you're watching Vikings preseason, just watch these two big men in the middle. They're so good. But no, I think it's overall the roster. I like what they did, but I just thought you had so many picks. You could have gotten more impact players at the pass rush, at the cornerback position. And I think there are holes. And then you do have Kirk Cousins, who needs everything to be perfect around him, in my opinion, to make a playoff run, let alone win a Super Bowl. That I just think at the end of the day, they're in win now mode from a roster construction standpoint, but I just don't think they're in that top tier of talented teams, like we were talking about with a couple other teams here already.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to put it. They're in win now mode, roster configuration. but they didn't do it right. they didn't do it right. So looking ahead, the Vikings have their first through sixth round picks of their own. They do not have a seventh round pick. They have an extra sixth round pick from the Kansas City Chiefs. Their over under is 9. That's tough. Of course, obviously these are all tough because they put it at the exact mark. But I don't understand gambling. 9. I'm gonna make you think about this first.
That's a good call for a push. I think the 17 game season, just having an extra game, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they get 9 or 10. I'll take the over. I think this is a solid football team. I think they're going to sneak into the wild card round potentially, but yeah, those are good odds. I mean, 9.5 would really make it tough. But right now, I'm taking the over. I think this is a team that's better than 500, so I'm good with taking the over. I'm actually good with that.
I think this is an average team. Average would be 8-9 or 9-8. I think that I think the Packers. I think the Packers are built to beat the Vikings a little bit better. Off the top of my head, without putting too much thought to it, I think the Packers win 2. I think the Bears win 1. I think the Lions. I think they beat the Lions both. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go 8. I think that this team is not effectively built to consistently succeed in the modern NFL, and it all starts with their offensive line and their quarterback position. I think that they could use. They have too many flaws in terms of like averageness. On the defensive side that other teams in the NFC are just going to pick apart. I just cannot see the Vikings making the playoffs this year. And I'm sure someone's going to soundbite that and be like, "Oh, Jack Desmond said he can't 14-3 or something."
I'm gonna.
Yeah, you're learning how to work with the audio. That's dangerous.
It is dangerous. I just wrote down. You said this at 17:35, and it will be cut up and it will be out there.
Yeah. Okay. Please do.
Actually, probably not because I'm lazy, so it won't happen. But
all right, well, 8-9. I think the Vikings are an 8-9 team this year. I think they got too much. I don't know. I just don't think it's built to succeed. Moving on to the Bengals, another team that I don't think is built to succeed. The Cincinnati Bengals drafted Jamar Chase, wide receiver at LSU, Jackson Carman, offensive lineman out of Clemson, Joseph Asai, the pass rusher out of Texas. I flipped to like the order of how I wrote this down. Cameron Sample, the pass rusher out of Tulane. Tyler Shelvin, defensive tackle out of LSU. Dante Smith, offensive tackle out of East Carolina, one of Lorenz's crushes from the Senior Bowl. Evan McPherson, the kicker out of Florida. Trey Hill, center from Georgia. Chris Evans, Captain America. And then Wyatt Hubert, the defensive end out of Kansas State. Do you get that joke, Captain America?
No.
Okay.
I don't watch movies. I'm just like...
The actor who plays Captain America's name is Chris Evans. All right, I'm sure. Oh, Youngtown on a first-year deal. This one was pretty obvious. Joe Burrow, quarterback. Pretty good quarterback for having only played, half a season. Jonah Williams, the left tackle. I believe in Jonah Williams. I think he's a good player. T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd is not Tyler Boyd is not not on his rookie deal anymore. I thought that he was. I was surprised to see he had already been extended. This leaves T. Higgins. He's a rookie last year. Proved himself pretty well. One of the guys that I like to draft in fantasy football now. Lorenz. There are holes in this team. There are issues with drafting Jamar Chase at the pick that the Bengals did, especially given the context. What do you think of this young foundation?
I'd like to save my thoughts on the Jamar Chase pick until we get the strengths and weaknesses and potentially predicting their over under. But I think in a nutshell, I did like this draft. I did like it. I think Jackson Carman can be a starter at the guard position. He's just not someone who's comfortable on an island, but he's got a lot of traits that he can work with. As a guard, I think he's really big, pretty athletic. He's got some strength. I think he's going to be a successful guard for this team. I was just low on his ability at tackle. I think Joseph Osai unfortunately has an injury, but I thought that was decent value getting him in the third round, a really explosive pass rusher who was pretty raw, moved from the off-ball role, but showed some flashes. And I thought and I still think he's a really good developmental piece. Cameron Sample, sort of the other way around, one of the more pro-ready power rushers. Really loved his ability to bull rush. Had one of the best performances out there at the Senior Bowl, I thought. And then Tyler Shelvin, I think, is a starting nose tackle. Deontay Smith was my favorite developmental tackle in a pretty solid group. I mean, there were a lot of tackles in that late day 2, early day 3 range, and he was one. He's another guy who had just an excellent Senior Bowl week in pass protection, really quick feet, got a lot of length to him. Now, he was adding weight. His body composition isn't great. He might be a year away, but I think, man, there's something to work with there. I think Chris Evans is a good pass catcher out of the backfield at around 220, so big guy. Trey Hill is someone who's going to make this roster at the center position. So I like a lot what they did. I love Joe Burrow despite the injury. I think he's just so smart. Coming out of college, he was one of the safest quarterbacks in my opinion. Not the biggest arm, but I love the ability that he has to move around, the accuracy that he does have, the anticipation. And T. Higgins, a solid receiver, going to be the number 2 now probably if everything works out with Jamar Chase. Jonah Williams, I still think is best suited at guard. I really do. I still think he could be a very good player at guard. Right now, he's a solid tackle. So don't mind Jonah Williams. He's a solid player.
You mentioned Chris Evans. He's 5'11", 220 pounds. This is measurements on the Bengals team. I did a study one time. But this is back in my Underdog Eagles blog days, so a couple years ago now. Actually, a few years ago now. As of 2019, in the past 5 years prior, running backs who were about just under 6 foot. What's so funny? You're right. What, water went down the wrong hole? Okay. Running backs who were just a hair under 6 foot, between 5'11" and 6 foot, and around that 220 number. Lorenz, you got to be okay, buddy. And around that
I was laughing about you saying you did a study, so
I did a study.
I got penalized for it properly by this water. Go ahead.
Good. I did a study that said, in the years prior, running backs who fit, that's the body type you're looking for an NFL running back. If they can run about a 4.5 40-yard dash, 220, just under 6 feet, that's typically the running back, the size that finds success in the NFL. That's like the exact measurement. Preferably if they can hit about obviously this is going to sound stupid. If they can hit like that 18 to 20 bench press, that's all statistically a very, very, very nice running back composition. The body is there for success. Anyways, we'll move on to the salary cap because you and I both want to talk roster configuration here. The 2021 salary cap, they're at $16.4 million. 2022, $45.8 million with 44 players on the roster. 2023, $104.2 million with 29 players on the roster. And 2024, $185.8 million with 14 players on the roster. Bengals don't.
Can I just say real quick?
Okay.
That is shocking that they have $60.4 million. Only $16.4 million of cap space. And now here I go leading you into the top 5 cap hits because this is why.
Yeah. Their number 1 cap hit is Trey Waynes, their corner at $15.8 million. Don't love that. DJ Reader, their defensive tackle at $13.5 million. That's a little bit more excusable. I think it's still pricey. Trey Hendrickson at $12.4 million. He's one of their pass rushers. Tyler Boyd at $9.8 million. A big slot wide receiver. And then Joe Burrow, their quarterback, at $8.2 million. That is the Bengals. We've talked about the Bengals before. They're not a team that makes a lot of trades. They're not a team that, makes as many splashes in free agency. They're a team that tries to draft and grow. They just don't draft that well. These splashes in free agency are not proper resource allocation. The Bengals are consistently weighed down by poor resource allocation. However, it is good to see that their starting quarterback is on a rookie deal is one of those top 5 salaries that's a sign of potential salary cap health. It just really hurts at the top. That Trey Waynes contract is absurd. Go ahead, Lorenz.
I mean, look, you're notoriously one of the cheapest franchises in the league for whatever reason, right? All these owners are very rich, and so is probably the Bengals owner. But for whatever reason, you never like to spend money. You let a lot of free agents go. You know, it's been a talking point for years and decades now with the Bengals. And then you pay guys like Trey Waynes and Trey Hendrickson a lot of money. I just don't understand. Like, how are you this cheap? How are you never willing to spend, really, or almost never willing to spend? Then you spend for these guys. It's almost like we're trying to get rid of this of this talking point that we don't like to spend, and then we're paying for Trey Waynes and Trey Hendrickson. Look, Trey Hendrickson was fine as a number 2 rotating defensive end for the Saints, had a lot of sacks, but if you turn on the tape, he's still a limited player. Now, can he be a starting defensive end? Sure. But is he going to be as good as being paid as that number 1 guy? I don't think so. Trey Waynes is probably a starting cornerback, but he's more of a number 2 corner. I don't mind DJ Reader, but you're paying him $13.5 million. That's probably $4 or $5 million too much. I like the Tyler Boyd contract. Joe Burrow's on a rookie contract. I like those 2 deals, but really the Trey Waynes one is really the big one here. That is just, man.
You know who I would be willing to pay $15.8 million at corner and $12.4 million, well, easily $12.4 million at defensive end?
William Jackson and Carl Lawson.
Yes.
The one holdup I have there is injuries, but I hear you. They're a lot more talented, easily. Yeah.
William Jackson, I looked it up back, like, this is like 8 months ago. I looked up William Jackson's injury history. If I remember right, it's not that bad. Carl Lawson's, he's missed some games, but William Jackson even hasn't missed that many games for this talking point that he is an injury prone player. I remember I wrote an article. I don't think it was published. It was about what the Bengals should do with their money, and they should have resigned Carl Lawson and William Jackson. I think this is inexcusable resource allocation. Speaking of resource allocation, let's talk about their strengths and weaknesses. Strength, quarterback. Joe Burrow is a good quarterback. If he stays healthy, he has a good offensive line. Defensive line possibly could be a strength. Possibly. They have a lot of guys who could possibly put it together to make for a decent team. Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader, Larry Ogunjobi, Trey Hendrickson, Joseph Osai. I know he's a rookie. I don't normally include those, but that's at least a depth piece, and he's shown some signs of being good in the preseason. And then Mike Daniels, a guy, kind of a veteran that I think's a good rotational guy. Wide receiver, they got Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. They also obviously have Jamar Chase. I'm not I consider these players unproven until otherwise. Also, you and I both have rants about Jamar Chase outside of this pick alone. Safety, they got Jesse Bates, who's one of the better safeties in the NFL, and they have Von Bell, who can play kind of a box safety role. Weaknesses, their offensive line, talking point that we're going to get into in just a second. They have Jonah Williams, who we think is fairly good, or good enough. Quentin Spain, Trey Hopkins, Michael Jordan, and Riley Reif, also known as Not Penei Sewell. At tight end, they have CJ Uzoma. He's fine. He's a weakness. Cornerback, they have Chidobe Awuzie, Trey Waynes, Eli Apple, and then it's Michael Hilton, isn't it? Mike Hilton, yeah, the former Steelers guy. I gave him a plus next to him. He could be better. Yeah, he's a
good nickel. He's a real good nickel.
He's the strength of that weakness. He's the strongest of that in that group. Average and unproven. I'm giving Joe Mixon average. I think he's a good running back. He's just never healthy. This is where I'll knock a player for never being healthy. The running game is average because of Joe Mixon's lack of health and because their offensive line. And then linebacker, a lot of people really like this I feel like a lot of people like this Bengals linebacker crew. They're all just average young players, at best average. I don't think that they're going to go anywhere at linebacker here. I think that those are guys who are going to wind up as reserve special teams, backup roles on other teams in just a few years. Lorenz, Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, let's talk about it.
I mean, look, we put wide receiver down as a strength. I think having Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins and whoever's going to play in the slot or whoever's going to be the third guy, hey, let it be Auden Tate, whatever. I think that's a strength no matter what. Now, you add Jamar Chase, who had 4 drops or whatever last night, but not going to kill a guy based off of one performance. But just from a team-building perspective, this is a team that, with Zach Taylor, said when they drafted Joe Burrow, they wanted to adapt a lot of what Joe Burrow did in college. And now, Joe Burrow's ability to evade the pass rush is tremendous, and he's got some of the best pocket presence that I've ever seen, maybe the best from a college quarterback. But you like to go 5 wide. You like to spread it out. You like to protect just with 5 offensive linemen. And Jonah Williams, Quentin Spain, Trey Hopkins, and Riley Reif just don't get the job done. That group sucks as a collective. I mean, it's not below average. It's not poor. It sucks. It's probably the worst offensive line in the league. Other teams like the Vikings, they had a really bad offensive line. Hey, look, they invest first-round picks, second-round picks. And I know they did invest Jackson Carman. I do like Deontay Smith. But you had the chance to select a really strong offensive lineman. Even if they had selected Rashawn Slater, who a lot of people liked a lot more than I did, I would have been happy with that. I think at the end of the day, you need to have a team building philosophy that makes sense, that protects your young quarterback. Even if he did rather have Jamar Chase and said that, you got to be stronger than that and say I don't care. We're protecting this guy. I think especially early in a career, you really have to protect young quarterbacks. We saw what happened last year, and I just think this offensive line's a recipe for disaster for this team. I don't care if it's Randy Moss and Jerry Rice playing receiver for this team. And I don't think receivers don't matter. I think it's great to have a receiver, but I would much rather have the offensive line up front, unless I have a veteran quarterback playing behind that offensive line. And Joe Burrow plays a bit like a veteran quarterback. He does have great pre-snap ability, but at the end of the day, I just think it's just something I fundamentally disagree with, their team building philosophy to not look at improving the offensive line as a major. When you had the chance, I mean, they did do some things, but they just didn't get the job done to where I can sit here now and say, hey, I feel great about having the guy that had his knee blown out behind pretty much the same unit last year put back out there.
Yeah, Jamar Chase he's a first round wide receiver, based on his college production, based on his athletic profile. But the thing is, he's draft. Choosing him.
It's not about Jamar Chase.
I know.
It's about the opportunity cost to me.
And what I'm saying is, he's around 6 feet, and he was a jump ball wide receiver in college. 6 foot jump ball is not going to translate as well in the NFL for you to draft a player in the top 5 when you could get a guy like Penei Sewell who will translate, who will improve your offensive line when that's a much bigger need. The Bengals are an egregious organization in terms of resource allocation, and as someone who puts a lot of time and effort into studying this stuff, drives me crazy. And also, you said that Joe Burrow said I'd like Jamar Chase on my team. Of course he does. He's a quarterback who wants weapons, who thinks he's invincible, who thinks he can evade the defenders, who will be like, oh yeah, my offensive line is fantastic no matter how good they are. He's not going to say he needs a better offensive line. He's going to say, oh yeah, let me throw to a guy I threw to in college. You're a general manager. You're a team, a front office who does this for a living. You should be able to be like, oh, that's great, Joe. We're going to get you someone who's actually going to help your life. All right. The Bengals have all their own draft picks, 1 through 7. They're expected to get a 4th round compensatory pick. Their over under is 6.5. I'm taking the under. I think this team's not going to do well. We've already said why.
I'm with you, and I love Joe Burrow. Like I said, I loved him coming out. I thought he played really well as a rookie before he got hurt, but I just don't think there are enough pieces around him. It's really him and a good wide receiver core, a solid defensive line, and Jesse Bates, a playmaker at the third level, who we haven't even talked about, one of the best safeties in the league. Shout out right here for that, a true single high type guy, ball hawk. But it's just not enough. It's just not enough to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's not enough to beat the Cleveland Browns. It's not enough to beat the Baltimore Ravens. You might walk out of that division with one win that you pick up somewhere. So,
if you're lucky.
And they're going to be playing a fourth place schedule. Hey, maybe they get to 6. I think they go under. Like I said, I like Joe Burrow. I just don't see it. I don't like Zach Taylor. I hope they hire Joe Brady next year, improve that offensive line. But we could really be seeing, I mean, I don't want to predict sort of a Joe Burrow downfall or anything, but hey, it's not. It's a really bad situation that he is in. They've marginally made it better since last year, and I just don't have a lot of hope for him as someone who, again, was and is really high on him as a player.
Looks a little too much like the Matt Stafford situation in his career with the Lions. Not fun.
Carson Palmer was with the Bengals, and I remember he came on. He was on some podcast that gave an interview somewhere where I was listening, and he said he thought Joe Burrow before he got drafted there was a great quarterback, all that, but you just can't overcome dysfunction.
Yeah.
That much, because he was on the Bengals. Obviously, I think he briefly had to retire. Then obviously went to the Cardinals. Almost won the MVP. Actually, had a very good second half of his career. But Carson Palmer said that I thought at the time, hey, maybe Joe Burrow might be able to. Doesn't look like it right now. I don't think they'll be a threat to win 7 games. I don't think they'll be a threat to make the playoffs. And I'm going under 6.5 here.
All right. Well, that's everything we have prepared for you, Lorenz. You want to give us a little outro here?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys.
That's why Alec always does it.
to our Bengals and Vikings roster review, roster breakdown. Getting the big face prophets here today on the show. You know, rare occasion. We'll be back for you guys on Thursday with the Cleveland Browns, who have a very good roster, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who have a very good offense. So that's going to be exciting. Probably around 5 o'clock again.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that. But until then, go check out the NFLDraftBible.com. Go check out all of our awesome content. On Thursday, you'll get a new scouting lens on Trayvon Walker, who is awesome, who is my dude. You should totally go ahead and read that whenever it's out. I'll have top 5 players at each position preseason coming out at some point, so keep it locked there. There's a lot of other content, articles, scouting reports. Go get the subscription for $4.99 a month. You get a bunch of content there. Jack, you got anything to add?
Just if you're ever a GM, be smart.
All right, so there you go. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you guys on Thursday.